Hey everyone, how's it going? Today I'm going to be talking about Yellowstone and 1883, both of which are incredible TV shows that are set in the same fictitious universe. 1883 is set in the late 19th century, and Yellowstone is set in the early 21st century, in like today's era. And they both are connected because they both follow the Dutton family. Obviously, separated by 7 generations, but both follow the same family and they have various connections. Both are incredible TV shows, like I already said, but of course, it's always fun to discuss which one you prefer. So that's exactly what I'm going to dive into today. So, to compare these two amazing shows, I want to discuss both secondary elements and primary elements. So, for me, primary elements of any movie or TV show, that's going to be the story and the characters, those two things. And then the secondary elements are basically just everything else. So, the cinematography, the effects, the locations, the action, like the outfits, the props, the design, all that good stuff. All of which are very important, of course, and supplement and support the primary elements. So I want to go ahead and take a look at the secondary elements of these two shows first, and then I'll discuss the primary elements. So for the secondary elements, I think both these shows, 1883 and Yellowstone, both get an A+. Both do an absolutely fantastic job with all of these things. They all have great locations, for all the different parts of the story. They have excellent cinematography. They have excellent, design, like outfits and props and everything just to bring you into the Western world. I mean, 1883 with like the old Western kind of stuff, and then Yellowstone with modern Western stuff. And both do a great job making everyone look their part, and all the horses, all the gear, all like the weapons and the outfits, everything looks great. And that's really important because at the end of the day, these shows are supposed to bring you into a very specific world, and it wouldn't go over very well if it wasn't realistic. You have to feel like you're really immersed in that world, and both of these shows do an excellent job of that. Watching both these shows, I never feel like it's fake. You never feel like you really truly do feel like you're immersed in those worlds. You never feel like it's, like not believable or fake or something like that. You definitely feel 100% immersed in the worlds of these shows, and all these secondary elements allow it to feel that way. And then, of course, the action. The action is great. Both these shows have great fights and shootouts and all kinds of good stuff like that. So overall, the secondary elements are exceptional for both of these shows, and in my mind, pretty equal. Now, taking a look at the primary elements of these two shows, I do see a difference between Yellowstone and 1883. I do want to emphasize, I think both these shows have very interesting sets of characters, and definitely both have very engaging stories. But in my opinion, one of these shows has a more engaging story and more likable and relatable characters, at least for me personally, and that show is 1883. So let's talk about story first, and then I'll talk about characters. So the main reason why I prefer 1883's story to Yellowstone's story is that I think 1883's story is a story about different groups of people from different backgrounds coming together and building each other up, whereas Yellowstone is a story of, people who are already together collapsing. So in 1883, you got the Dutton family, you got the cowherders, right, Ennis, Wade, and then later Colton. You got Thomas and Shay as kind of like, the leaders, and then you got the German immigrants. You have all these people come together to go on a very dangerous, crazy journey together, and there's tons of problems and obstacles, and of course, it's the Wild West. It's very very chaotic and dangerous, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of these people were able to come together and bond with each other, and despite their differences, they were able to gain respect for each other and earn that respect, and really learn about each other and learn to appreciate each other. Whereas Yellowstone really is a story about this whole Dutton family really just being dysfunctional and constantly having problems, and over time it getting worse and worse and being more chaotic, and there just being more turmoil. Beth and Jamie hate each other. Jamie has tons of problems with his father. Casey is switched between living on and off the family property, and there's just been so much internal conflict. And I think over the course of the show, it's been getting worse. Both are interesting stories. Both are engaging, but I prefer the more positive story of 1883 compared to the more negative story of Yellowstone. And I know that sounds kind of ironic because obviously Yellowstone is set in a more civilized age, whereas 1883 is a much more chaotic age. But despite that kind of, irony, I think despite the crazy world of 1883, the main storyline I think really is in a lot of ways positive. Whereas Yellowstone, despite it being a more civilized world where it's a lot safer and less like chaotic, right? You have, I think, the main storyline heading more downward and like this downward spiral for pretty much all the characters. So that is why, in my opinion, I just gravitate more towards 1883 story in comparison to Yellowstone story. Now, moving to the characters, I like the set of characters in 1883 better than the characters in Yellowstone, and the main reason is because I find 1883's characters to be more likable and relatable for me. In fact, I like every single one of the core characters in 1883, which is hard to pull off with such a big group of characters, but they did it nonetheless. So you look at like the intro, like the opening credits that they play at the beginning of every episode. By the way, it's a fantastic intro. I love the music. Brian Tyler's an excellent composer. I love the graphics and the designs and everything about that whole intro, roll of the credits. It's fantastic. But anyways, every single character in it, I really love. I love Shay and James Dutton. I really like Margaret Dutton. I think Elsa Dutton is a great character. On the next slide, I really like Thomas. I really like the leader of the immigrants, Yosef. I like John Dutton, like the young boy. And then I like all the cow herders. I really like Ennis, of course. Ennis is arguably my favorite character in the entire series. And I really love Wade, too. And then I like Colton a lot, too. So every single one of the characters, like, at the core of the show, it's a big group, but I like all of them. And it's really hard to accomplish with, like, this big group of characters. I mean, you have so many. It's difficult to make all of them likable and relatable, but they did it for me. They really did, and I really enjoyed that. And the biggest thing for me that I liked is, I think at their core, all of those characters were of good character. They were all good people. They were all different, and they all had their own, unique personalities and desires and goals in life. But I think it was just, for me, I just enjoyed seeing this group of people that were, despite being different, they were all good people with a good sense, I think, of morality. And I just like that. And I guess that's just me personally, what I like in my movies and TV shows. But I like that. I like to see people that I can relate to, in different, for different reasons, right? But in Yellowstone, I think the characters, I find pretty much every character to be like interesting, right? I mean, they're entertaining, but a lot of them I just find to be despicable. I mean, I think someone like Beth Dutton. I know a lot of people like her; they think she's funny, but I don't find her funny at all. I just find her to be just insanely immoral and just unlikable. And I think there's just so many problems within that family, and in a lot of ways, it's just all the family members annoy me in some ways. Jamie can be really annoying. Even the John Dutton I find to be annoying. And so many of the characters, I just like Monica, Casey's wife. I find her to be really annoying. So you got more annoying characters, I think, in Yellowstone. And then for the characters that are likable, in some respects, a lot of them just have other problems. Whereas in 1883, despite those characters being flawed, I think they were a lot more respectable. They were characters that gained my respect, whereas Yellowstone, not as much. It's entertaining. Those characters are entertaining in Yellowstone, but they're not really people, like, for the most part, that I would, like, really admire or, like, treat as role models. Whereas 1883 had plenty of those characters that I do look up to and I do admire and do consider to be role models. And I mean, I guess that's just kind of like a personal opinion to me, whether you want these characters to be role models for you or not. But I like being able to admire characters, and I like being able to see myself in them and aspire to be like them. And 1883 did that for me, and still does. I'm gonna rewatch the show at some point. It's so fantastic. Whereas Yellowstone, even though I enjoy the show, there's not nearly as many of the characters that are like that for me, where I really treat them as role models, because I don't think they really are of the right character to be role models. So, in the end, it truly is the characters and the story of 1883 that put it a level above Yellowstone, in my opinion. The journey that this story follows is just so entertaining and so much fun to watch, and the characters, again, are just so likable and relatable, and they really are role models. From Shay being a great supporter, for like Elsa when she was having suicidal thoughts, and for Colton after he made a dark decision. to James Dutton being a great father figure, to Thomas becoming, like a husband to Naomi and a father figure for her children, and so many other examples of these characters just being good people, being, admirable. That just really is what does it for me. Even more than the story and the journey, it's just those characters. It is a character-driven story, and those characters hit it home for me. All of those core characters. Like I said, there's a lot of characters in the show, but they're all just so likable to me and respectable. So that's really what makes 1883 just such a magnificent story to me, and one that I will absolutely be watching again. And of course, Yellowstone too. Yellowstone season 5 will be coming out November 13th of this year, so I'll definitely be tuning in for that show, which I love as well. But in the end, I do believe 1883 is above Yellowstone in my opinion. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate your support. Definitely go down in the comment section below and let me know what you think. Do you prefer 1883 like I do, or do you prefer Yellowstone? I'd love to hear your opinions. Love to have some discussion in the comments. Just keep it respectful. Thank you all so much. See you in the comments.